Welcome in, everybody. It's your boy, it's your host, it's Chris Renne here. We're talking sports again today, and I lied to you last week. There's football talk, a lot of football talk actually, and it feels like as we go, I lied to you because I don't think football talk's ever going to end with me. So, instead of giving you a weekend review, it was chill, whatever, screw it. There's too much to talk about today, so I'm going to get right into it. Hopefully you guys liked last week's show. It was a fun show to record. I had some technical difficulties, so it was a little weird in some spots. But, moving past that, in life, there are defining moments. Decisions people have to make that decide their future forever. For me, one of those decisions was choosing a college and coming to Ohio State. Once I got accepted, there wasn't really much of a choice for me because the choice was made. There's minor choices. Do I get a Subway sandwich or do I go to Chipotle? Easy choices like that. Well, one of the biggest choices in the landscape of sports came in the way of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray got drafted by the Oakland A's. He was the 6th pick. And everyone prior to this season said, well, he's going to have some fun at Oklahoma, then he's going to go straight to the major leagues. Well, you don't go straight to the major leagues, you go to the minor leagues. And Kyler Murray made the decision to choose football over baseball. What's this mean? What's this mean in the landscape of sports? Well, since a new collective bargaining agreement came out, rookie contracts have become more friendly. And with his draft projections, him being a first to anywhere from the first pick in the draft to 18th, 19th in the draft, there's a big chance, a major significant chance, that he's going to make $23 million guaranteed on his rookie contract. And if he ends up being a good player, he'll make more in 10 years as a football player than he will in 10 years as a baseball player. Because as a baseball player at his age, he's already lost value as a prospect. It would take him about 2 years to get to the majors, 2 complete baseball seasons, to which in football he'd already have made $20 million, and he might not even get to the majors. So in a lot of cases, baseball's a lot safer of a sport. There's less injury risk. But with the more financial guarantee and financial backing, I think the risk is less than the reward, and I think Kyler Murray made the correct decision. Another thing that was very apparent is Kyler Murray likes to play baseball. But in what he said, Kyler Murray loves football, and he wanted to dedicate his entire life to football. And I think when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if he's going to be a great baseball player or a good football player. If you don't love being a baseball player every single day and you love being a football player, choose the one you love because you'll be happier with the decision in the end. It's about choosing what you want to do most, and that's exactly what he did. Now, he's 5'9", 5'10", pushing it, maybe, probably not. Looks very small in stature. You look at Tua, who's 6'1", and he looks about 3 or 4 inches shorter than him. He's still a projected high pick. He throws the ball unbelievable. Great touch, great velocity. Can throw it all over the field. Strong arm for his size. But how will he rate in comparison to other quarterbacks? A lot of people are already saying he's the second best quarterback in the class. I agree. I think Dwayne's still a better pro prospect, but Kyler Murray is a lot more interesting of a prospect due to his running ability. Now, granted, Dwayne Haskins is more of a running quarterback. That's a joke. But I think you have two top-tier quarterbacks, then you get into the second tier with Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and so on and so forth, all the way down until the draft's over. I'm excited. I think Kyler Murray's going to make the draft process a lot more fun because now you have a debate of who's the first quarterback that's going to be taken. You get the fun electric guy, the copycat mold. You see the short Baker kid go to Oklahoma. You see all these Oklahoma and Big 12 quarterbacks having success. Then you see Big 10 quarterback Dwayne Haskins, a one-year wonder who put up absolutely absurd numbers and broke all of Drew Brees' Big Ten passing records. I think, all in all, it made me more excited for the draft. And I think if that's what he wants to do, he made the right decision. I think you got to leave it at that. I ran a poll on my Instagram. A lot of people voted on it. It was pretty split, 50%, 50%. So that was cool, actually. I got more votes on it than I thought I would. So that was fun. If you haven't on Instagram, follow me at ChrisRenne5 and the page Basement Prod. And the other show, Pints at the Round Table 1, all on Instagram. Yeah, so getting into it real quick. Decisions, am I right? Today I chose Chipotle over Subway. Kyler Murray chose the NFL over the major leagues. We're pretty much in the same place and making the same level of decisions. So there's that. All right. Let's keep it going. Why not? Why did I have to stop talking football? Why did I armbar myself like that? I don't want to stop talking football. I mean, football's the best. So we're gonna move it forward. Second chances. I am a believer in second chances. I'm a believer in people can change for the better. I'm very excited. Not because of what happened. I think the Browns are going to be good regardless. That's what I'm excited about. So they make a move, and it's a very sideways move. And when I say sideways, I mean it doesn't make the team better. And if it does make the team better, it might make the team look worse for making the deal. If you haven't heard, Kareem Hunt, former Kansas City Chiefs All-Pro running back, had the battery of a woman on video. He was getting called racial epithets. He got called the N-word repeatedly because he wouldn't let this girl in the room. And he came out, and his friend was trying to hold him back. He shoves his friend. The friend knocks the girl over, and then he comes in, and he kicks the woman. The whole scenario is bad, and as a young guy, you should never put yourself in that situation. I've heard from a couple guys who write for, I didn't hear personally, but I read from a couple guys who've written for Cleveland.com, The Athletic, and a couple other more local Ohio papers, because Kareem Hunt's a guy from Cleveland. He's from the Northeast. He played high school ball throughout there, and didn't have many big scholarship offers out of high school. And a lot of people see him in the NFL, and they're like, why'd this dude play at Toledo? Well, apparently dating back well into his time at high school and in camps, he was a guy who was a little bit more hot-headed, a little bit more immature, and not exactly who you'd want on a major program. He was a 3-star recruit. I mean, that's a good recruit, you know. Being a 3, I mean, there's the most 3 stars of any of them. But let's see. I'm gonna take a gander at his recruiting profile. Kareem Hunt, Cleveland running back. Here we go. As prospect, view recruiting profile. He was the 107th running back in the country and the 91st overall recruit in Ohio. So his offers: Toledo, Akron, Ball State in Indiana, Bowling Green, Northwest Ohio, Cincinnati. So we had local Akron, a Northwest city in Toledo, a small school in Indiana, in Ball State, a small school in Bowling Green, and then Cincinnati. Well, you saw his talent. His talent's very evident. He was an all-pro running back for the Kansas City Chiefs prior to the issue. And when you look at his recruiting, his problem outweighed the talent. And with John Dorsey on the Browns, the GM, has been known to give players second chances. The one player that definitely comes to mind for me and John Dorsey, who used to be the general manager for the Kansas City Chiefs, is Tyreek Hill, a guy who's been explosive, a guy who's gotten better over the years and has evolved from his role as a gadget player to become one of the better receivers in the NFL. Well, Tyreek Hill beat a pregnant woman. That happened. That was real. John Dorsey drafted him later in the round. They said his talent outweighed the risk, and they believed he was a changed man. John Dorsey is a guy who expects the best from the people he employs. If you don't give him his best, he's not scared to cut ties with you. The optics of this situation do not look good for Cleveland or the NFL. The NFL does have a history of domestic violence. You think back to the Ray Rice incident that got caught on video where he knocked out his girlfriend, now wife. So they overcame that, but it was still a horrific scene. Then you have Greg Hardy, one of the most violent people in the NFL. So much so that he is no longer employed by the NFL, and he is a UFC fighter. A lot of people are talking about how he's changed, and it's really hard to believe that when the sport he takes part in is one of the most violent on the planet. You keep it moving. Way back in time, one of the only players with a statue in front of Brown Stadium, Jim Brown, one of the greatest running backs to ever do it, one of the people who gave prominence to black athletes in the NCAA. All the great accomplishments he had have overshadowed his horrendous past with women. Jim Brown was a woman beater in every sense of the word. And then post-career, you have people like O.J. Simpson. You have so many players that it's very problematic. It's a very big cultural problem. You don't understand why it happens. But I believe in redemption stories. I know. Horrible acts are committed against women. And Kareem Hunt was provoked. So his is a little different. Kareem Hunt acted wrongly. And John Dorsey is one of the most trusted voices in football. So if he believes he's changed, he's going to have to prove it every step of the way. And he's gone to anger management and he's done a lot of counseling for his issues. But some former Browns players, i.e. Josh Gordon, had done counseling for their issues and it never got fixed. Greg Hardy did counseling for his issues, never got fixed. So it's a give and take thing. You keep going, is he worth the risk? I think time will tell. I think it's one of those things you can't predict. He's on a 1-year deal. It's worth $1 million, and he's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the year. The suspension hasn't been given. He could change. People change. I said it right before I started this segment. I believe in people changing. I hope the best for Kareem Hunt. And as you see with Ray Rice, he has done a lot to change his ways and change his life since the incident. It's terrible that it has to come to those incidents. But one of those sayings is when you don't really see who you are when you're at the top. you see who you are when you're at the bottom and what you become from it. And some people become way better, and some people become way worse. So, yeah, I mean, that's my football talk for the day. I hit it. I mean, Kyler Murray made the decision. Kareem Hunt also made a decision. Kareem Hunt's was terrible, and the Browns made a decision to employ him. But yeah, the NFL, the always in the news league, whether it's for draft stuff, free agency, trades, crime, there's always something to talk about. And I'm sorry I lied to you, because I'm going to be talking about football for the entire offseason. Yep, I need to take a quick break. I got to use AU Uso El Baño. We'll be back promptly. Need something moved across the country? Doesn't matter how. Less than truckload, full truckload, expedited shipping, air freight, hazardous materials. Go to freightsaver.com. That's FREIGHTSAVER.com. Click the link. Get a quote today. So, I'm back. And obviously, a lot of what I do with this show is opinion-based. So, a lot of you guys probably wonder where I get most of my statistics and all that from. Well, I bid you adieu, and I will tell you, I get it from the internet. Most of my sources come from the big dogs, CBS Sports, The Athletic, ESPN. It doesn't matter. If there's news, I'm going to talk about it. I get my news from the same places you get it. But I try to put it all into a show. And show you guys what to talk about. And with all that's going on in the sports world, sometimes you just need to know what to talk about so you can sound smarter than your friends. But yeah, there's some big events in other sports as well. I started off with football again because I had a little overlying joke about last week. Not talking football again for a while. Well, that was a lie. So, what does that lead me to? The NBA. That's natural. That's a natural rotation of stuff. The big news in the NBA, the trade deadline. Some big moves were made. One of my favorite moves, and it's just because the stories that always come out of this place. And no, it's not the one you're thinking of. It's not La La Land. I'll be talking about that in a quite a few, though. First and foremost, the 76ers have a very broken tall point guard when it comes to jump shooting in Ben Simmons. A guy who's become more of a public star for his relationship with a girl than his actual basketball talent. A guy who won the Rookie of the Year in his second full year as an NBA player. And you go to Joel Embiid, who's more busy with talking on Twitter and hitting on Rihanna than he is about basketball. He's more about showmanship and the Mutombo finger than he is about winning games. This gets me to the next player, Jimmy Butler, one of the hardest guys to deal with in a locker room or in general. Now, he's an ultra-talented player. All three players are ultra-talented, and you fill out the original four with J.J. Redick, a sharp-shooting two-guard who doesn't really handle the ball and doesn't really bring much besides a mid-range jumper and some sharp-shooting threes. And then you go out and you need to make a move. And there's some good players out there. And you find a player who actually makes so much sense. Elton Brand's a rookie general manager. And he made one of the best moves in the NBA, I think, in a long time. So, when you had Sark in the lineup, when you had other guys rotating in, when you had TJ McConnell moving in and out of the starting lineup, with those four guys, none of it made sense. Well, Elton Brand made one of the biggest moves. And for a rookie GM, it's very impressive that he pulled it off and didn't lose that much to go with it. And Brett Brown, the coach of the 76ers, ended up getting a very versatile player, Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has been a journeyman in ways unpredictable and completely out of his control. He started in Orlando, found his way to the Clippers for quite a bit of money on his restricted free agent deal, and the Clippers dealt him because they felt their playoff hopes were running dry. So they traded him, got some draft capital, got some players to fill out their roster, and sent their best player to Philadelphia. Now, Tobias Harris is a max contract level basketball player. He's got good range. He's an 18-8 guy, something you don't find just growing on trees. He can handle the ball, and he's a great teammate. So you have two prima donna rookies, or not rookies, young guys, and Embiid and Ben Simmons, who haven't won shit. And you have J.J. Redick, a veteran, hasn't won a thing. And you get to Jimmy Butler, who thinks he's the greatest winner on the planet, but once again, what has he won? And you add Tobias Harris to it. So you get, I'm going to say, 2 out of the 4 of those guys, and Redick and Butler, want to win more than anything and are willing to make the sacrifices. I think Ben Simmons has proven that he is not serious about winning. He's taken 17 threes this year. He's missed all of them. It's disgusting. It's ugly. His jump shot's broke. And I still don't think he knows what hand to shoot with. Everybody saw the way LeBron was guarding him. I know he can't shoot, and that just shows his lack of commitment to winning. Joel Embiid has so much talent and so much potential, and he can do things that nobody else on a basketball court can, but he seems to take too many jump shots for being 7'3" and 275 pounds. We get it, Joel. You can shoot too, but you should be spending most of your time with your big ass 7'3" frame on the block. So once we get through that, there's people who want to make sacrifices. There's people who want to be stars and want to be popular. You bring Tobias Harris in, and I think it makes one of the other 4 extremely expendable. I don't think it's Ben Simmons, and I don't think it's Embiid, but Butler now becomes an extremely expendable piece. J.J. Redick, with the outside shooting, becomes an extremely expendable piece. But if they can all become a cohesive unit, this just became the best starting lineup in the Eastern Conference. And I think the Sixers won the trade deadline for it. And that's why they're the first one I'm talking about. And as I go through these other trades, I'm going to talk about my picks post-deadline for Eastern and Western Conference to make it to the finals. The next team I want to talk about, I'm going to hit on them kind of, not quickly, but kind of quickly. And then I'm going to hit on one more team, and then I'll talk that one team everybody wants to hear about. So, you go up north, and you keep going up north. Then you go east a little bit, and you go to this place, and there's this light-skinned rapper from there who just won a Grammy, had a really good speech. It was all good stuff, It's called this. It's where Degrassi takes place, Toronto, Canada. They've got this basketball team there. Not a lot of history because it's relatively young in comparison to the rest of the league, but they are the North. They have a very rabid fan base and a very large appetite for basketball. Canada's slowly becoming a basketball powerhouse, and it's awesome. And it's all part due to the popularity the Raptors garnered in the 90s with Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, and so on and so forth. Well, a big problem with the Raptors was they were really good. They've been really good for 6 or 7 years now. Really good. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry have put together a team that is always there in the end. The roster depth in Toronto has been unbelievable. And they have probably the best backup point guard in the NBA in Fred VanVleet. They picked up a dude from Africa, Diakam, who's been sensational in every facet of the way and is on the straight track to win the most improved player and probably become a 20-point scorer in the league. You have Kyle Lowry, a very good point guard. You used to have Jonas Valanciunas, a decent big man, and now you have a Gasol brother. So they trade Jonas Valanciunas to the Grizzlies for Marc Gasol, and I think they had to give up a draft pick to get it. So is this an improvement? Absolutely. Marc Gasol is one of the best offensive centers of this generation. He can spread the floor. He can shoot from outside. He's unbelievably soft in the post, in the good way, with soft touch around the rim. Decent defender, a little older than Valanciunas, but a better all-around hooper. What does this trade mean for Toronto? Toronto is tired of being second place. Toronto had to run into Boston. They had to run into LeBron. Whether it was LeBron in Miami or LeBron in Cleveland, they could be the best team in the East record-wise and run into that hacksaw. Well, LeBron's gone. So instead of playing it safe, they go and they trade DeMar DeRozan, a beloved figure in Toronto, to get Kawhi Leonard, who has 1 year left on his deal and can leave at the end of it. Will he? That's up for debate. That's a topic for July 1st in the summer. But while he's there, while you still have Kyle Lowry, you got to get one more star player. And Marc Gasol was that. And I think with both the moves they made, the Sixers and the Raptors made, they have put them in a position a tier higher than the Celtics, and I think just a slight tier below the Bucks. But by the end of the year, that can all change, depending on the cohesion of all these players coming together now. Marc Gasol adds so many more dimensions to the offense. Valanciunas was a post guy, didn't really have a jump shot, couldn't really move around further than 15 feet, and I think it really made them bad. The Bucks also made a pretty good move. They'll be talked about more in my NBA picks post-deadline, but the Bucks made a move, got rid of Stanley Johnson and one other player to pick up Nikolai Mirotic from the Pelicans, which is huge. Stanley Johnson's not a jump shooter, and the other player they traded also was not a jump shooter. They didn't really add much, but that's a big move surrounding Giannis with another shooter to put together. And that roster is very solid. Brook Lopez, very good. Center, consummate professional. You get Eric Bledsoe, also a really good player. And, Malcolm Brogdon was a surprise. He won the Rookie of the Year. Now, yes, it was the worst Rookie of the Year race of all time, but he still won it. And, you have a lot of depth on that roster now, and you just added a shooter. And with Giannis's improved passing skill, I really think the East is going to be highly competitive in the playoffs. A little bit different than the West. So, the last team I'm going to hit on, and this one is probably going to be a little longer because there's so much that went into this, was the Lakers' moves and their lack thereof. So recently, Magic Johnson called the Pelicans out for taking offers but not taking them seriously. So what does that mean? So I don't think the Pelicans were ever going to trade him. And I think that's what Magic Johnson's saying. I don't think he believes that the Pelicans are ever actually interested in trading Anthony Davis, because apparently they offered 6 players and a first-round pick, and it still didn't work. So when you offer Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, Ivica Zubac, on 2 more older guys, I think it was Rondo and Beasley, to a team, and a first-round pick, and they don't take it, they were never serious to begin with. And I think that's what Magic Johnson was saying. The Pelicans would have been stupid to give up Anthony Davis to a team in their conference. I think the only 2 options you could have traded him to were probably the 76ers and the Celtics in hindsight. But we're throughout the trade process, in the days alluding to the deadline, Kyle Kuzma, Lonzo Ball, who's now injured, and others, all the other young guys, played their worst basketball in a stretch run, and that was when LeBron was coming back. The Lakers are going to make the playoffs. The Lakers aren't going to win much in the playoffs. If they're the 7th seed, I could see them getting to the second round and then getting bounced. If they're the 8th seed, I can't see them getting past the Warriors, not this year. And probably not next year. So it did mess with locker room chemistry pretty big time, and I think LeBron and Rondo and some of the veteran leaders came out, and once the deadline was over and they had that big win in Boston, it was awesome, and it was a good momentum boost. But long term, I mean, not knowing where you're going to play is a big deal. So the Lakers did end up making some moves. They got Mike Muscala and Reggie Bullock. Didn't research who they traded Reggie Bullock for, but I do know they got Muscala for Reggie Bullock and Svi were traded straight up in a second-round pick. Okay, that's what that was. And then Ivica Zubac and Michael Beasley were traded for Mike Muscala. So Mike Muscala is one of those European guys. Not really. He's just got a European name. I think he's played for the Hawks. He's been around the league. He's outside shooter. He's played for the Sixers. Veteran, a guy LeBron would like to have. So he's played for the Hawks, the Sixers, and now the Lakers. I knew I had seen Muscala recently, but there's a good trade to get him. He fits with a player like LeBron. I think they have to go out and get a couple more players through this. I don't think Melo's one of them, but if you get an older veteran guy off waivers, I think it'll be big time. I think it'll be extremely helpful. Reggie Bullock's another one of those veterans, a big-time outside shooter, a guy who's going to fit around LeBron, and a guy who could bring a leadership sort of like Rondo to some of these younger guys. Now, Reggie Bullock hasn't been in many big moments, but he's been around the league, and with stuff like what happened at the trade deadline, you can see that he's been around that block and has been a leader when it comes to that stuff. And I think he's a very intriguing player. He's explosive. He's a guy. He's a confident shooter, and I think pairing him up with LeBron is another good move. Is it enough? No. Mm-mm. But it gives you some more margin for error with the trade. I still don't think you give up Kuzma. I still don't think you give up Hart. I think Lonzo and Ingram are the 2 guys you can trade. I think Ingram's shown a little bit more of a dog post-trade deadline, but I still think he's just a very overvalued asset, and I don't think he's really going to translate into that pro everyone thought he was going to be, but not everyone does, and that's not Brandon Ingram's fault for the lofty expectations that were set of him. Just because he's 6'11 and skinny and can shoot a jump shot does not mean he's going to be Kevin Durant, plain and simple. I think the Lakers made their team better. I think they added some veterans to the room, and it was well needed. I think the team was too young, and I think getting a little older and getting some more experienced guys was big. I think they're a good bridge between LeBron, Rondo, and then the younger guys, because both Reggie Bullock Mike Muscala are not the oldest, but they're not young either. The young core remained, which is huge, but I don't think it's enough for LeBron. Not yet, and I don't think it'll be enough until he has a star like Anthony Davis. So that works out. I mean, you see the team he drafted in the All-Star game. Free agent, a year and a half till free agent. Not even close, James Harden or whatever. Doesn't matter, but then another free agent. I think half his roster is made up of impending free agents. So, yeah, LeBron's recruiting. LeBron's recruiting big time. When it comes to the finals, I still can't find it in my body to count the Lakers out, as crazy as that sounds. LeBron is that good of a basketball player, and this core has taken some major leaps, but they're going to have to get better defensively, and they're going to have to get better when it comes to consistency. That moves me in to my NBA picks post-deadline. But before I get into that, I might as well do another plug for the social medias. Follow Mom's Basement Productions and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at mbasementprod. Follow us on Instagram at mbasementprod. Then go and follow the second show, Pints at the Rounds Tables. It's usually recorded on Thursdays and released either that night or on Friday. It's a good weekend listen. Fun show. If you're at home and you have nothing to do, you don't want to watch TV, crack a beer, sit down, and just listen to us talk. We're idiots. It's fun. It's a good time. Have a few drinks, couple laughs. It's Die Hard. Yeah, and then follow Pints at the Round Table, Pints at the Round Table 1 on Instagram and Twitter. We don't tweet as much on that. Our most recent post is about Kareem Hunt. We do have some humor on that page, so if you get offended easily, it might not be the page for you. Just a trigger warning, as they say. So, with the trade deadline passing, that means we are now in the home stretch of the NBA season. And the NBA will get extremely real post All-Star break, which is coming, and I'm excited for it. Got a loaded three-point contest. You got a loaded skills challenge. The dunk contest is the weakest of them this year. I'll be tuning into the celebrity game. I'll be watching the All-Star game. Hopefully they play a little defense. If a single team breaks 200, it's not basketball anymore, and I'm not a fan of it. So, fun fact, on the TV right now, I have it on SportsCenter, and the 76ers have averaged 130 points per game since they got Tobias Harris. So, yeah. And then this America hater, Keith Olbermann, has now graced the screen, so I'm going to get back to paying attention to you guys. All right, so my NBA picks post-deadline. So, in reality, I want to say there's 6 teams that can win the title this year. 4 of which are in the East, 2 of which are in the West. The first one, obviously, being Golden State. They still reign supreme in the West, and I don't think that's going to change, not this year. And if Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson both stay, it's going to be tough to change it next year. That leads me to my second team in the West, the Rockets. I think Harden's doing some ridiculous stuff. It's been fun watching it. Not really. It's kind of the worst basketball I've ever seen. I lied to myself and you guys. It really has not been fun. So we talk the Rockets and a team. Okay, I'll talk about one more team in the West because I feel like this story's sort of been overlooked by everyone but one guy in my fantasy basketball group chat. Paul George. Paul George is very good. He's playing really well right now. And Russell Westbrook just broke Wilt Chamberlain's triple-double streak. But the one thing that's been impressing me with Westbrook is Westbrook isn't taking dumb shots as much. His usage rate has gone down immensely, and he's still averaging triple-doubles because he is making plays and filling in where the team needs him to as the game goes. He's deferring to Paul George in crunch time. Paul George is a better basketball player than Russell Westbrook. And if they play like they're playing now and continue with this look, I think they're a team that can make some noise. I really do. And I think they're going to continue to improve. And I think if Russell Westbrook has the self-awareness to continue his path he's on, he's going to continue to get his triple-doubles, but he's also going to win more games. He's shooting at a higher percentage, he's taking less bad shots, and it's been doing wonders. And that moves me in to the more complicated Eastern Conference. So the most talented roster in the East, I'd say from top to bottom, and the most depth on a roster from top to bottom, I'd say is the Boston Celtics. I think they have a lot of young stars in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They have Al Horford at center. They have Kyrie Irving at point guard. Terry Rozier, very good. Gordon Hayward's also a very talented player. But it doesn't seem to be clicking like people expected. Now, the Celtics are very talented, and Kyrie Irving's the type of guy who can go off for 40 on any given night. I think with it all being said and done, I think the Celtics are going to be very scary, and their betting odds still hold true. They're plus 125. But I think at the end of the day, the chemistry is just not there. You see it in the news. Kyrie Irving asked me on July 1st. Danny Ainge talking about marriage. And reports coming out from Brian Windhorst saying that if the Celtics were to trade for Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum wouldn't mind going to New Orleans to be the face of his own franchise. That's a conversation for a different day, but I think that's where the Celtics lose me in picking them to win the East. So they're probably my fourth best team, all right, of the big four. Then I'm going to go to the Sixers. As I was talking about earlier, the Sixers have a lot of immaturities and a lot of players with a lot of really big egos who think they're the best and will not, as I said about deferring, none of them will defer to each other. They all think they're the guy. Jimmy Butler thinks he's the guy. Ben Simmons thinks he's the guy. And Joel Embiid definitely thinks he's the guy. Well, Joel, if you were the guy, Rihanna would be with you. So that's on you, bro. Ben's at least dating a Jenner. Come on, Joel. I think the Sixers are good. They have a lot of talent. Adding Tobias definitely helps strengthen the roster, and I think Tobias is the third best player on the team. I think he's a little better than Jimmy, and he's easier to play with. So there's a lot of reasons to hope. I think if they come together and become more selfless and become better basketball teammates, because they're all great basketball players, they're just not great teammates, they can make some noise. That leads me to my second team I think will come out of the East, and that's the Toronto Raptors. You talk about it, Kawhi Leonard, Kyle Lowry, Siakam. Now you have Marc Gasol. Kawhi Leonard, it's a full roster. You have veterans off the bench. You have experience. You have playoff tested veterans. You have a former champion. And a young coach. Well, not a young coach, but an coach who's worked his way up. A coach who's been coaching a long time. And he coached for the Raptors G League affiliate, and was an assistant on the Raptors for Dwayne Casey. Then took the job, and the players love him. He's a player's coach, plain and simple. And I think the players have responded well to him. I think this is a roster that plateaued a little through the midseason with Valanciunas, and you add that third offensive weapon, it just makes them more complete. And yes, they're not as flashy, they're not as fun as the Celtics or the Sixers, but I think that's for the best. I think they have one of the best home court advantages. I think they have a very realistic shot of getting the 1 seed. And if they play in Toronto, I don't think the Bucks are ready to go in that environment. I think the Celtics are ready for it, but I don't know if they'll be together. And I know the 76ers are not ready for that environment. Lastly, my pick currently, and I think it's a very popular pick, so I'm not really going out on a limb here, but it's the Bucks. The Bucks have the best player in basketball besides LeBron playing right now for him in Giannis. They have very good depth. They have good guard play. They have great shooting. That move for Mirotic was crucial to spreading the floor. Chris Middleton's also a great shooter. Brook Lopez has found a nice home. Malcolm Brogdon, like I said earlier, a former Rookie of the Year. Very, very good off the bench. Possibly the Sixth Man of the Year. Then you get George Hill, another veteran. Dante DiVincenzo, if you don't remember, big-time player in a big-time game for Villanova. Correction, that's my bad. A very complete roster, a very well-rounded roster, a mix of veterans and youth, a roster that's going to play hard every single night. Mike Budenholzer's a good coach. Sort of got screwed out of Atlanta with them tanking and all that. I feel bad for Atlanta every day. All the Atlanta fans have to see Luka Doncic win games. Well, they have to sit at home and watch the Hawks, lose games. So I think the Bucks are the safe pick. That's it. That's it for NBA. I think it's going to be a fun stretch run. I'm excited for the All-Star game. It's nice to be getting back into basketball. I've watched more basketball games this last week and a half than I have in the last 8 months, so that's awesome. I even watched the Cavs game. It was rough, but it was fun. I didn't get a chance to tune into the Cavs-Knicks, which we ended up winning, but it's not about that. It's about watching some youth. It's about watching Chetty. It's all that. So I'm going to move into my final thoughts. So a new football league had its inaugural weekend. The American Alliance Football League. It was fun. I watched some games. The football wasn't as terrible as you'd thought. There's some big names. Mike Bercovici, former Arizona State quarterback. Matt Asiata from Utah, used to play for the Vikings. Trent Richardson, former third overall pick, played for the Browns. The first legally blind running back to play in professional sports. You have Christian Hackenberg, Blake Sims, former Alabama quarterback, Matt Sims, Chris Sims' brother, used to play in Atlanta. You have Scott Tolzien, famous backup of Aaron Rodgers, and the people in the coaching chairs. You have Steve Spurrier, a big name coach. We'll go through the list of coaches because I think that's more important than who's playing. You have Marvin Lewis broadcasting, if that's what you're into. You've got some mediocre jerseys. You got Rick Neuheisel. Rick Neuheisel used to coach for UCLA. Kevin Coyle, not exactly sure. Tim Lewis. You have Mike Singletary, Hall of Fame linebacker, coaching the Memphis Express. Has Christian Hackenberg and Zach Mettenberger at quarterback. The Birmingham Iron are the team with Blake Sims and Trent Richardson, and former NFL kicker Nick Novak. Steve Spurrier's coaching in Orlando. Dennis Erickson, Salt Lake. They have B.J. Daniels, if you remember him from South Florida, an ultra-talented quarterback. For the group of five, not really throughout the country. Big guy, very good athlete, big arm, inconsistent thrower. You go to San Diego, you got Mike Martz, Josh Johnson, former USD Torero, longtime pro, Bishop Sankey, who played for the Titans and played at Baylor, explosive running back in college. Then you have the San Antonio Commanders with head coach Mike Riley, Oregon State, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Not Wisconsin, Oregon State and Nebraska. Big times. They have a 10-week, 40-game regular season. Everybody plays each other. It started off on CBS. Ratings outdid the NBA. The one thing that made this league different was its betting. It's a very easy thing to bet on. It's very open to gambling. It's very accepting of the law. And I don't know, its goal is to be a developmental league, a place where players can play, a place where people can look for NFL players to look and give players second chances. And as I discussed in the show, it's a show of second chances today. So I think it's fun. I think it's interesting if you keep getting players with big names to it. You really have a chance to create a developmental league. You can see by the quarterback, some of these guys were college stars. You look at some of the running backs, college stars, some of the wideouts. Greg Ward Jr. made a huge catch. He played quarterback. This is a good place for, say, guys like Greg Ward, who played quarterback in college, to make the transition in a place where they're playing against people of equal skill. It's a good opportunity. It's a good place to continue to learn the game of football and try to get to that highest level. Like I talked about on Canadian Football Free Agents go out on February 17th. That's another place for it, but I think the American Alliance fills a void for football fans. I think it's just another thing to watch. I think it's fun. I think it's going to outcompete a lot of regular season NBA games because it's football. Football is the most fun sport on the planet, and as long as it remains betting friendly, I think the AAF is going to be here to stay. And I think once people start learning the teams, start learning the team names, I don't think you add teams to it. I think you stay at 8. I think you create some rivalries. You have some fun. And it's a good time, and you just watch them. Hopefully the places that got these teams are excited. So, yeah, all in all, I'm excited for the Alliance Football League. I'll probably be tuning in quite a bit. You got the XFL started next year. It's going to be a lot for competing for player pools. I think the XFL went to WWE with it the first time around. I think the AAF's doing it right. I think the mix of college and NFL in it is the way to go, and I'm excited to see where it goes and where it gets to on this journey. And that will do it for my show today. This is the Chris Renne episode 35, I want to say. Let me check real quick. One last time. Like and rate the Chris Renne Show. It's helpful. I like to hear your guys' thoughts, even if they're mean. Like my sister, she said I say too much. I've got 16 ratings. I've got 2 1-stars. I've got 1 3-star. And 13 5-stars. So I don't think I'm doing too bad. Yeah, and also go rate Pints at the Round Table so we know how we're doing there. Critique us in person, critique us not in person. We've got 5 ratings. We've got 5 stars so far. People tend to enjoy it. I don't know if that's just lies or trying to make us feel good. But it's okay if you say we suck and tell us to improve on stuff, because that's the whole goal, is to get good at what we're doing. Anyways, thanks for listening again. Hope you guys continue up. Follow us on M-Basement Prod. At M-Basement Prod on Instagram and Twitter. Like us on Facebook at Mom's Basement Productions. And then follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram, Chris Renne 5. Twitter, Chris_Renne. And I will see you guys Thursday for Pints at the Round Table. Thanks again. Talk to y'all next week when it comes to sports and stuff. So see you then.